Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sunset Safari here. Safari Live is the show, WildEarth is the company, in the Kruger National Park. Here in the northeast corner of sunny South Africa is where you find yourselves on a virtual safari for the afternoon. Those are some buffalo over there, and we would like especially to welcome Miss Mervine's class from Virginia Beach. And you're, I believe, a geography and English class combined. I'm not sure how that works, but please feel free to send through your questions. Hashtag SafariLive, questions at wildearth.tv. It'll be great to hear from you. On camera, we have Jeandre. Hello, Jeandre. Hello, my name is James Jeandre, and on the other vehicle we have Scott Dyson. He's being filmed by David. And in the final control, Kirsten McLennan-Smith on the vocals, and I think Nikki on the keys. It is 33 degrees centigrade, 93 degrees Fahrenheit, a very pleasant afternoon here. Some lovely clouds sort of gently floating overhead, filling us with a sense of wilderness peace. Now, this is a large herd of buffalo, the extent to which I actually don't know. We've actually just driven up here. Droven, that's wonderful English for the English class. Droven, of course, is the past tense of drive. And it isn't. Don't ever use that word again. And we've just driven up here, and we're trying desperately to, well, not desperately, but we're trying to just see the extent of this herd of buffalo. It is probably about 300 strong. And we're just going to ease our way in here and get an idea of how many there are. And I think you'll find that they would have come from the water. There's a large water hole up to the left-hand side of your screen. And they will now be looking for some fresh grazing. And you can see the ones on the right-hand side are starting to look a little bit nervous. Jeandre, just look at this fellow here. He didn't like the look of Jeandre at all, did he? And as they smell us, you see the wind, there's a gentle breeze coming from the left-hand side of your screen to the right, and as they start to smell us, they start to move. They don't like the smell. Hello, Jake. You're in the classroom and you want to know what the biggest and then the smallest populations of I'm assuming you mean mammals are here. Jake, the largest, I suppose, unsurprisingly, you would find are the herbivores. And the largest group of herbivores we get here are a species called impala. They are an antelope species, and they are the most common antelope in this particular area. Then I suppose the most uncommon would be the predators, and I think you'll find this in just about every single ecosystem, where predator numbers are much smaller than their prey items, and the smallest number would probably be either leopards or cheetah. In fact, cheetah would definitely be far fewer in this particular area than leopards. So cheetah or wild dogs would be the most, or the least numerous mammal that I can think of. Thank you, Jake. And that, of course, like I say, is completely standard for any ecosystem. The number of predators will be far fewer than the number of their prey, unless things are out of kilter. Now, Jeandre, you are also in the classroom there. Jeandre, if I can just ask you to put the camera on that buffalo that unfortunately is now walking away from us. Jeandre, you want to know how the animal's coping in this drought, how are they managing to live? And the answer is they're changing their diets. A buffalo is predominantly a grazer, but that buffalo that you're looking at now was just chewing on a tree. They have resorted to browsing. Buffalo will do this. Common cattle will do the same sort of thing. Some of the animals are unable to adapt, some can. Impala, which are, like I've said, the most common antelope that we get out here, are able to adapt. They can graze or browse. They're mixed feeders. The buffalo will resort to browsing if they have to. Otherwise, some will move away to places where there is more rain. For example, we had a rainstorm the other day, very localized rain, and I think that rain has driven or certainly pulled a lot of the elephants away from this area, and they have sought out sort of more fertile ground, but the entire area is in a drought situation. So those animals that can are adapting their diets, and many animals out here are now eating actually their winter diets, because this is a winter rainfall, at least a summer rainfall area. So it actually looks like a winter landscape. to us at the moment. A few more leaves in the trees than there would be in winter, but it is essentially a winter landscape. So things like a bush baby, which is a very small primate that we get out here, and they will eat tree gum now. They would normally be eating insects, but the drought has meant that there aren't a lot of insects around. I'm going to have to pull this over my eyes, I'm afraid. The sun is very bright. And so they're on to their winter food, which is tree gum, acacia gum. Likewise, the elephants are also eating largely browse, and normally this time of the year they would be grazing. So the animals are adapting, and those that can't are starting to show real signs of the drought. A good example would be the steenbok. Sorry, I keep moving my comms. Let's go across to Scott. He's going to tell you about some impala before I say anything else about them. He's got some to show you.
Hello everyone, and James has just been speaking about impala, and we just bumped into a very, very large herd of them. It's not the animal we were looking for, and surprisingly, in the same area this morning, there was a very big male lion. And seeing all these impala looking so relaxed means to me that the lion may have moved off, which is surprising because he was full-bellied, and I didn't expect him to go anywhere during the day, so we've been surprised, but that is the joy of being on a live safari. You just don't know what is going to happen and when. And even though you may be searching for some animals, you will often find others like this. All different shapes and sizes here. You can see a few youngsters, varying shaped horns and sizes thereof. Hello, Myra. You'd like to know if we've ever managed to see a kill live. And yes, we have. Not very often, but the only one that I've managed to see was a leopard catching a baby impala. Interestingly, the leopard had lost its cub to a hyena the day before, which was obviously very sad. It was the first time that cute little leopard cub had ever been seen. And within the next 24 hours, it's really interesting what happened, because everyone felt so sorry for the leopard who lost her cub to the hyena, which is understandable. But then that afternoon, the leopard killed an adult female impala, and we didn't see that, but the next morning we found the leopard, and she took us back to the impala kill, which she had pulled up into a tambuti tree, keeping it safe from animals like hyena and lion, which are not good climbers, so she stores it up in the pantry there. And we were waiting for her that afternoon to continue feeding on the adult female impala kill when we noticed there was a tiny little baby impala lamb, and it had been orphaned by the leopard who killed this little impala lamb's mother. We then heard the little impala lamb calling desperately, looking for mom. And the leopard got up and killed it as well, which is obviously good because it would have suffered for a long time if the leopard hadn't have caught it and killed it as well. But that's the only kill that I've seen. But an interesting sequence of events with the leopard having lost its cub, and within 24 hours, after everyone felt so sorry for the leopard, the impala had also gone through a very tough time. We have had other kills, lions catching buffalo, and lots of birds catching insects, and we got an owl catching a mouse once. But the thing is with animals of this area is that they do a lot of the hunting at night time under cover of darkness when it's a little bit easier for them. We've also been in the area of wild dogs who are very successful hunters. They kill more prey than any other predators in terms of their strike rate. They probably are successful about 70 to 80% of every time they chase something, whereas lions and leopards maybe only 20% of the time. Okay, let's carry on looking for this big male lion. He was just up off to our left, and he could be anywhere lying up in the shade. Now, I forgot to introduce myself to everyone. I'm Scott, and I'm teamed up with Dave on camera, and it's great to have you guys on board. Judith from Lansdowne High School would like to know, how does the food chain work here? Who's right at the top? Who's the most dominant? And it's the lion who are the most dominant predators in this area, and the male lions, more importantly, are the most dominant. They bully the females from time to time. If the females make a kill and the males come across it, they will steal from them. Lions will also steal from leopards, from cheetah, from hyena. So there's a lot of thievery that happens out here. If you're big and strong, you get what you like. And the same goes for the lesser predators. Leopard will steal from cheetah and will even kill cheetah. Lions will also kill leopards, so it's very harsh realities of the African wilderness is that it's only the toughest and the strongest animals that do survive. But what's interesting, Judith, is that things will vary. In different parts of Africa, you may find slightly different scenarios happening. For example, here the hyena will usually try and steal from leopard because they've worked out over time that there's quite a lot of leopard in this area. We're very lucky with our leopard viewing. And rather than trying to steal from lions, which is risky business, it's a lot more dangerous than stealing from a leopard, they will almost specialize in stealing from leopards. Whereas in other parts of Africa, hyenas have realized that it's most effective to hunt for themselves. And there you will find lions actually trying to steal from them more than hyenas trying to steal from the lions. So you get different relationships between the apex predators that occur in Africa, depending on where exactly in Africa you are. And I guess we could think of us as humans and how different tribes or different cultures will act differently, behave differently in different parts of the world. And even though we're the same species, we're all humans, we act differently. So we can often try and apply our own kind of animal behavior to that of wild animals when thinking about that and asking questions about them. Antonio, you ask a good question. We are on an open vehicle. What I'll do is I'll show you later is I'll get another little camera out and take you on a tour around the vehicle so you can see what it looks like from outside, not from inside looking out. So we can do that a little bit later, but it's completely open. And you'd like to know what prevents the animals from attacking us out here. Well, I guess that's got to do a little bit with Judith's question from earlier. Who is the top of the food chain in this area? And I said the lions were, but it's actually us. We are at the top of the food chain. We're not actively participating in it, but many thousands of years ago we would have, when we were still living in caves and wearing skins as clothing and cooking on open fires. We were the apex predators. We used to hunt wild animals and eat them. We used to gather fruits from whichever areas of the planet we were foraging through. And that means that over time, the wild animals became scared of us as humans, and we have become the most dominant animal on the planet. That's why we're taking over, and we've taken over a little bit too much, as a lot of you know, not leaving wild animals with much space. Now, because of that, animals will typically run away from humans. If you go to very, very rare or remote parts of Africa where humans and animals don't see each other very often, and you drove in with a car, that animal's going to look at the car and run away from it. It's not going to stick around and think, what is this? It's going to be scared of us. It's also going to be scared of the upright figure of this animal walking on its back legs. That's we've evolved to do. We wouldn't have been on our back legs forever, just like a lot of our monkey cousins that run around on four legs. The lions and wild animals of this area became scared of the bipedal human figure that walks around. And that's why in this area it's taken many, many years since the 1960s of people coming here, driving around and making the animals realize that all we want to do is take photographs or film them and watch them. We never want to interfere. We merely want to be spectators. And by being a spectator out here, we fit into this funny little gap where animals almost don't see us as a benefit to them. They don't see us as food. We never help them. All we do is just sit and watch. And because that's been happening for many years, the animals have become reassured that we are of no threat to them. And if we don't threaten them and we read into their behavioral telltale signs. If they growl at us, we give them space. If an elephant shakes its head and says, stop coming so close, we move back. And by giving them that respect, they've become tolerant of us and allow us to get very close to them, watch them doing exactly what they would do as if we weren't there, which is exactly what we want. That's not, Antonio, to say that we mustn't be careful. They are still wild animals, and even though they may not react to the vehicle as you would think they would, we still need to be careful and still need to give them the respect that they need, because there are situations where animals, if you don't listen to them and read into their signs, they can crash into the vehicles. So those things do happen, but not as often as one would think. Good. We are going to be sending you back to James. I'm going to try and work out where this lion's gone. I may have to get off and check for where his tracks have gone. It's going to be difficult. The ground's quite hard, but let's see what we can do. Hopefully we'll find this lion soon. Over to James.
Well, in terms of a food chain, of course, Scott is looking for the buffalo, and Scott is looking for the lions, and one of the lions' favourite foods, of course, is a buffalo, just like these ones. And these buffalo are quite closely related to the Asian water buffalo. Well, they look the same, but they're actually a very different species. And we were talking about, or you were talking about, being the apex predator out here. And of course, that is us. And it's one of the reasons that we've never managed to domesticate these buffalo, or zebra, or any of the other African animals. And it's because we evolved on this continent as human beings that they see us as the predators that they do. And in other parts of the world, I mean, we colonized the world during the course. I think the last place for us to colonize was South America about 11,000 years ago. And by the time, of course, that human beings left Africa between 60 and 80,000 years ago, we were anatomically modern. Most of the animals that we know around here were as they are now. And when human beings came across animals in Asia and in Europe and Australasia and in the New World, the Americas, they didn't have a natural terror of human beings like these ones do. This is a big bull buffalo, and he's decided that he's not quite as terrified of us as his cohorts. But then he got a smell of us and decided to go the other way. Let's just go a little bit closer. Now, Kai Rem, I think I've heard your name correctly. You're from school, obviously, and you want to know how it is that we as human beings affect the landscape in this area. Well, Kairam, I suppose the greatest effect we have on the landscape is through the construction of roads, for game drive, and that's an important part of it. Then you must understand that this particular area that we're in is split up into separate private farms, and this is one of the problems with private land ownership, is that everybody's allowed to do what they want with their own piece of land. And so one of the major things that everyone wants to do, if you own a game farm or you own a little piece of the wilderness, you want to put water on it because it's very nice to sit outside and of an evening and watch the animals come down to drink in front of your camp. But what that means is that instead of an area where animals move down to the perennial rivers to drink, they now don't have to move those distances. And that has changed substantially the species suite that we have out here. So if you were to come into this area, say, 300 years ago, before the advent of human beings and before the advent of, well, not human beings, but before the advent of large numbers of human beings, and certainly before the advent of hunters and private landowners, I think you would have found much larger herds of a much more varied species suite. So I think we would have had sable antelope and roan antelope and sesame, maybe, and even hartebeest, and the odd herd of eland even. And they would have been moving between the perennial rivers. Now, of course, the impala and the zebra are much more numerous than they used to be in the past, and that's because they are not very good at getting to and from or migrating to water, and now, of course, they don't have to, because you can't actually go with it sort of more than 2 kilometers without hitting some water. Now, the interesting thing about that, of course, is that the water was put in with the best intentions in the world. Let's provide water. All animals want water, and so if we give more water, the animals will survive better, and things will be hunky-dory. When in actual fact, it had precisely the opposite effect. It reduced the diversity of mammals, and it changed the vegetation type as well. Of course, around water, you're always going to have heavier pressure on the grazing and on the browsing, and so the result of this is that they're now closing waterholes, for example, in the Kruger National Park. They're closing those down, encouraging the animals to move again to the different rivers, and so what that does is makes the herds bigger. They have a more positive fertilizing effect on the land, and then pieces of land do actually get to rest, whereas now, certainly in some of these private reserves, that isn't the case. So, Kyron, I would say that would be the most obvious effect that human beings have had on this area of late. Very different, of course. We've had an enormous effect on the area over the course of our history here. Remember, human beings, of course, walked out of the caves in this area about 150,000 years ago in South Africa, and they have been affecting, and we don't know to what extent, but they have been affecting this landscape ever since then. Very nice question. Thank you for that. I'm just going to try and get into a different position here, and we'll see if we can't find just something else to look at. So, Jeandre, it's a very similar question to Chiron's. What kind of man-made influence would have reduced species in this area? Well, I think it would largely have been, initially, actually, when the local... so it's a difficult question to answer, but it's a good one. Let's take it 300 years ago. Now, 300 years ago, this area would have looked, I think, very different. It would have been much more open than this. I don't know that for sure, but I think that would have been the case because the number of elephants would have been much higher. Very few people lived in this area simply because it was full of malaria, which it still is at times, but it was also full of trypanosomiasis, or sleeping sickness, which is brought by something called a tsetse fly. Now, that meant that people could not live here on a permanent basis. They used to come in the winter, graze their cattle, and then disappear again into the mountains or down onto the coastal plain during the summertime. And then in 1898, there was something called the rinderpest, which is a disease, a domestic stock disease, that wiped out swathes of game. And eventually what that did was to wipe the tsetse fly out, and so sleeping sickness disappeared from the area, and that meant that people could come into the area much more. Rinderpest, of course, wouldn't have been here but for the advent of domestic cattle, and possibly I think it was brought by European cattle. So that's obviously changed everything markedly. And then if you combine that with the incredible effect that elephant hunters of the 19th century had on this area, those would be the two largest effects. Now, what that did, of course, the elephant hunters managed to completely decimate the elephant population of the area. There were only about 8 elephants left when the Kruger National Park was proclaimed in 1926. So really, you can imagine there used to be thousands and thousands of elephants walking through here. Now, elephants are a keystone species. That's a good term. And the keystone species is a species that has an immense effect. You take it out of an ecosystem and often everything else will collapse underneath it. Now, an elephant is a keystone species because they have such an enormous effect on the vegetation. And so the elephant hunting of the 19th century, combined with the rinderpest, which allowed far more people to move in here on a permanent basis, would have reduced species and would have changed the state of the landscape completely. And we don't know exactly what it would have looked like, but I suspect much more open, possibly a much more diverse grass sward. Let's go across to Scott. He's got a fascinating bird to show you.
Well, we've just got into position here. And look at how pretty this bird is. It is called a European roller. And what's interesting is that it has traveled all the way from Mediterranean Europe, from another continent, all the way to where we are here in South Africa. So quite fascinating that it's made such a long voyage. And it's come here for our summer. I know James has been discussing the fact that our drought is causing a little bit of trouble for some of the animals at the moment. And, I mean, this European roller had no idea that it was going to be a drought while it was flying all the way here. But now that it's arrived, it's had to make do with the harder times than normal. There's still a little bit of food around. but not as much as usual. And what's really fascinating is just the other day, I got to see some fascinating behavior. And Jeandre and Maya, you would like to know, how has the drought affected the animals' migration? And what it's meant is that on arrival here, they've had to start thinking about how to find more food. And what I've noticed is the other day we had a rainstorm that came over, and typically after big rainy thunderstorms, a lot of insects will emerge from their hiding places and thus provide a lot of food for animals like this European roller. And what we saw was flocks and flocks of birds following the rain as it moved off, because they knew that if they followed the rain, there would be lots of insects like the reproductive termites that emerge from the termite mounds and therefore create a bounty of food. So they just had to kind of think clever in order to find their food. And I guess still probably better off being here than up in a European winter, because there'll be a lot less insects there than even what we're experiencing during this drought. You can see it's looking for some insects now. Look how it's tilting its head from side to side, and we may get lucky. It may at any moment fly off this perch and go and catch something. They usually catch their prey on the ground, the rollers, and this is not the only roller we get here. We get some that stay here throughout the year. Some may say it's a slightly prettier cousin. And I'm going to get my bird book out now to show you guys the other rollers that we get. This is the only one that migrates to us. But take a look at its cousins, because it's a family of incredibly colored birds. Look at that. The lilac-breasted roller. We might be able to find you one of these before the end of the safari. Also the racket-tailed roller. These we don't get here, sadly, further north in the Kruger National Park. And to give you an idea, we are in a massive, massive national park. It's about 200 miles long. So these ones are right at the top of the park. The purple roller down here, and the broad-billed roller, this we get here, this one also further north in the park. But aren't those all amazingly colored birds? All eat insects. Thanks, Dave. So we're not having much luck with this male lion. I'm not too sure where he could have gone, but like I said earlier, that is the great thing about safari. You always get surprised by the animals, and even though you may think you can predict what they're going to do, you often get surprised. And that's often well, it is the reason why it keeps a lot of safari guides happy and excited about doing this as a job. Often people ask, don't you get bored of seeing the same animals day in and day out? And you don't, because there's always something strange happening, and they're always proving you wrong with regards to what you think they may be up to. Yay! We found some animals that you're all going to like. They're just on the right of us. And Cody, you would just ask me what is the favorite part of my job. Well, it's sharing moments and experiences that so many people will only ever get to experience in Africa. And the animals that we're about to see over now are one animal that I love spending time with. And it's those moments that we get to share with people, the joy on their faces when they do get to see some of Africa's finest game is what keeps me excited. The hardest parts of the job, maybe the early mornings. That can be tough, but you get used to it, and you often have time to snooze during the day. Now, as I off-road, I know which trees can tolerate a little bit of bullying and those which can't. You get some trees that are very flexible and some that are more hard that would snap if we drove over them. And part of your guide training is to understand which trees you can drive over and which you can't. We are in great luck. I'm just going to stop here and take a look into these bushes. It doesn't look like anything at first, but you're going to get a shock when you see what we found. Some elephants. You can see Mom's tusks over there, and she's got quite a few little youngsters with her, one that looks very recently born. And I think that I can recognize this elephant because she's missing the end of her trunk, I think. I didn't get a good look, but I think she's an elephant with a slightly shorter trunk than normal, and she's got a tiny newborn calf that I'm hoping is going to pop into the open. So rather than us barging our way through these bushes, let's rather wait for the elephants. It looks like they may come closer towards us, but they're moving very slowly in this midday heat. The youngster, there's three of them. So there's a medium-sized one on the right of the screen, then Mom, whose tusks you can see is lifting her trunk up, plucking off some leaves. Imagine you could do that with your nose. Oh, and the tiny little baby is somewhere in between them, but it's so small that we can hardly see it. You might be getting a glimpse of it behind the medium-sized one now. It is minute. And we're in luck. I think there's also some more elephants coming in onto the scene now. Here they go. They're about to pop into a little clearing. Hello, Juan and Alexis. You would like to know if I've ever had any scary moments, ever been charged by animals or been caught in a stampede. And yes, I have had some scary moments, mainly when doing walking safaris. It's more dangerous when you're on foot than when you're in a vehicle. So yes, definitely had some scary moments, often with elephants. Breeding herds of elephants, or basically a herd of elephants with lots of mothers and youngsters. They live a life where the females are in charge of the herds. The males roam freely or in small groups of other men, and they will only join up with the herds when there's opportunities to mate, really. They don't have a role or responsibility of having to father young or raise the young. So the herds that are led by the females can be very, very protective over their young, and when they come across people on foot, they can be quite dangerous. So elephants are one animal that you want to be careful of on foot, especially females with young babies. Often, interestingly enough, it's the elephants and buffalo that are actually more dangerous than the lion and the leopard, which is not what most people would assume. But thankfully, in all my time here, I've never been in a situation where I've ever had to harm an animal. We do carry rifles when we do walk in case of an emergency, but with the right training and with the right respect given to these animals, you can avoid dangerous situations. There's a nice big bull on the right here. He's still growing, but he's getting there. And I can tell that he's a bull because he's got a very, very rounded head. The females have got a more angular head, a more 90-degree angle when they turn parallel to you, but it's difficult to see in this thick bush what's what, but it looks like they're going to come right past us. And I think he may give us a little bit of attitude, but don't worry, he may shake his head, but they're having the decision now whether to come up to us or go around us. We're not intruding on their space. We've got fairly close to them, but now allowed them the opportunity to decide what to do next. I've lost track of who's who. There's quite a few more elephants that have come onto the scene here. And like I said earlier, isn't it remarkable that they've got this hugely specialized nose that they can use like we would use our hands to help feed, and they'll also suck up their water into their nose and then blow it into their mouth in order to drink. Imagine us trying to do the same thing with our nose. Hello, Stephen. You'd like to know if there's any endangered animals in the park, and yes, there are. The main ones that come to mind are cheetah, wild dog, and the ground hornbill. Quite a few of the vultures are also threatened, so even though we do have this huge, magnificent wilderness area that we're a part of, the effects of humans outside of the reserve has big effects on the animals that live within it. Sometimes, especially for the animals like vultures that can fly freely out of the reserve and aren't protected by the fences of the reserve, they can fall prey or problem to us humans that sometimes do some nasty things to them. So there are some real issues regarding some of the species that live out here. Thankfully, though, the elephant numbers in this area are stable, so there's no problem there. Let's take a look. There's a tiny youngster here. This is the one I was talking about. Look at how cute that is. And one thing that elephants take a long time to get to grips of is that trunk that I've been talking about. It'll take young elephants quite a while before they can master using it. It's a very complicated tool with 180,000 different little muscles, and that's what allows their trunk to twist and turn just about every way imaginable. But to be able to learn how to control that, like I say, it takes some time. Now, I'm guessing that this big bull that we're looking at now you can see his rounded head that is looking at us side on. So that's good news, that you've got to see that side profile of an elephant bull's head, rounded like a soccer ball. A female's forehead would essentially be a 90-degree angle. It would be like a square on the top of her head. And I think I know why he's hanging around here. Earlier I said only the males will join up with females when there's opportunities to mate, as a general rule. And I noticed one of the females walking past looked like she may be in season. There was a lot of moisture dripping between her back legs, so that would explain why this guy's floating around. He's trying to get himself a girlfriend. Not trying very hard at the moment. He's lost focus and he's now busy on just filling his belly. Here's another one here coming, Dave. Might be a little bit better. Another young bull. He may give us some attitude. Let's see what happens here. Oh, he's coming right in front of our vehicle. How awesome is this? Hello. What can you smell? We don't have any food here, but you're more than welcome to come and eat all of the bushes that are growing around us. We're not going to give you a hard time. He is literally 2 meters away from us, everyone. You can see my shoulders still in the shot, and now maybe even my head. And this is what we were talking about earlier, how if you respect animals and give them opportunities to come up to you as opposed to us intruding on their space, they can sometimes be very relaxed. And even though they have maybe come across humans behaving badly in other parts of the world, I think they feel safe here. They know that if they come into this reserve, they're not going to have any trouble. And that's what's allowing us these incredible views. Hello, boy. What does that monkey thorn taste like? I hope you guys get some more rain so that the trees grow a little bit more for you. But it seems like you're really enjoying chewing on that. You can literally see into his mouth. We are very, very lucky to be getting these views. He's almost close enough for me to reach out and touch him. Not that I'm going to. But he is now very, very close. How cool. Hello, boy. What do we smell like? I did have a shower before drive, so I hope... Oh, did you see how he flicked that grass there to send all the sand flying off the roots? And as you can see, he's mixing up his diet. He's feeding on grass, he's feeding on leaves. Elephants have got a very wide diet. Hello, Nicole. In Lansdowne, you'd like to know a little bit about the behavior of the animals. Do they have periods or times of the day where they're more likely to be active and more times where they're likely to be docile? And yes, certainly, depending on the species, some will be very docile during the day. A lot of the cats will typically be docile during the day. But elephants, for example, will move throughout the heat of the day because they need to feed on so much vegetation. As you've seen, since we've been with these elephants, they have been feeding non-stop. And they will spend a lot of time, especially during the hotter hours of the day, like now, on the move, when the lions will typically be sleeping. So different species will certainly have different tendencies and periods of activity. The cats after dark. A lot of the prey animals will be more active during the day when it's a little bit safer. But a lot will also depend on the season. Come winter or summer, they may behave differently. And because a lot of animals can't rely on the routines that we rely on, for example, you know, the big cats, they don't know when they're going to be able to catch their next meal. Sometimes they have to be flexible. But the most productive times usually are in the early morning and the late evening when it's nice and cool. So that's why we head out on safari. First light and last light in the evening. Well, as much fun as we've been having with these ellies, we're going to continue on now and send you across to James, who's found some other interesting animals.
Well, that's an incredible sighting that you've had there. I'm really pleased that in just these 45 minutes you've seen such an amazing array of different animals. Here are two zebra. That over there is the stallion you're looking at, and he's with one mare, and that is quite an unusual thing. I think probably what we have here is a young couple. The young male has probably just found himself his first wife. There she is. And they are grazing on the grass on what is called a fire break. Now you can see here that the landscape is slightly more open. A lot of the trees have been cleared away, and what they'll do is if the animals don't maintain this as a short grass clearing, the people will maintain it as a short grass clearing, and you'll find that there are a number of these sort of bands of short grass around the place, and what that does is to provide an area where if a natural fire were to come through the area, you've got a position from which to start what we call a back burn, and that's what we're on now. And for the animals, they of course really like this because the grass it's open, which means they can see what wants to come and eat them, and the grass also is not kind of in amongst some trees, which makes it difficult to eat and obviously much less thick. There we go. Just try and get into a decent position here without frightening them off. There we go. So, yeah, young male. Female is not actually that young. She looks quite a lot older than him. Bit of a Mrs. Robinson situation. You can ask your teacher about what that means. And that's not unusual. Now, the interesting thing, you've been obviously hearing about the drought, and we know about the drought, and we know that there is a drought, but these zebra are in fine condition. Now, that has nothing to do with the fact that they look fat. Zebra always look fat. I mean, that little stallion there at the back is actually, I mean, look at him, he's shining. But their manes are standing dead upright straight, and that means that the fat deposits that they keep in their neck are still fully intact. Now, Nate and Jeandre, you want to know about the water distribution on this reserve and how do animals find water. Nate, they find it in the same way that you would. They learn from their parents where the water is, and they learn when their foals, the herds, will travel to and from the available water. And yes, there is a lot of water provided in the Sabi Sands for the animals. As I said, just north of us, there's a property called Buffels Hook, and that's got a number of landowners, and each landowner there seems to have a dam in front of his little camp, and so the animals can go there. At Jeandre itself, we've got a number of water holes, some of which are pumped and some of which collect rainwater, and we had a little bit of rain the other day, and so there's actually quite a lot of water around the place, and that's why I'm really pleased you saw those elephants. Those are the first elephants we've seen in the last few days, because the water is now even more dispersed than it would be, which means actually, although we're in a drought, for the next week or so, there will be lots of little puddles of water that animals can drink from. Remember, very few animals out here actually need clean water. They can quite happily drink very dirty water, the likes of which you wouldn't even bath in, let alone drink. You can maybe hear a gentle breeze blowing out of the southeast, and that's generally where most of our weather comes from. But I don't think there's a front coming in at the moment. I think this is probably just a slight change in the air pressure. I think we're in for a very hot week. It will probably hit 38 degrees Celsius, which of course is pushing 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the next few days, which is of course very hot indeed. You can see the zebra there eating the fresh grass and enjoying it very much, and I'll get on with that. I'll get on with this. I've got a question here. It sounds like Fergus, but I don't believe that's your name. Because are you getting that, Jeandre?
Bertus?
Bertus? Maybe Bertus. Anyway, a question about local languages that are spoken here. Yeah, no, I'm afraid I'm missing the name. The local languages here, the main local language spoken here is something called Xitsonga, also known locally as Shangaan, and that I do actually speak it in a passably conversational way. Then the other major local language here would be Pedi or Northern Sotho. And that is a completely unrelated language, and I mean there are 11 official languages in South Africa, and in this area those would be the major two, Pedi or Shangaan Tsonga. And what I will do is say goodbye to you. We'll hand you over to Scott, and I will say goodbye to you in Shangaan, and I will say ikensile ngopfu hivona la iranza ngopfu kuvulavula na n'wina nta kurungula le ka Scott hitavonana siku rin'wanyani. Bye bye.
Well, I'm sure a lot of you are impressed with James's skill of being able to speak the local language. He speaks it better than any person I know, of course, other than the local people who can speak that language. I hope the kids at Lansdowne High School have enjoyed being on safari with us. We got so lucky with that elephant sighting, and again, that is the joy about safari. We were looking for a lion and we found elephant. No problem with that. And the fact that that one came so close to us was an absolute bonus that we were all so lucky to experience, and I hope you did enjoy that. I guess you guys have to head off possibly to your next lesson, and until you join us on the next safari, work hard, and I guess thank your teacher for allowing you guys to be on a live African safari. I wish I could have done that when I was at school. So yeah, you guys are lucky, and we are happy to have you on safari, so keep joining in. We do it twice a day, and we will see you next time. Goodbye. For the rest of us who are going to continue on safari, let's try and work out what this lion's done. Now, there has been a report that a lion, possibly the same one that we had this morning, was found to the south of our property, meaning he has moved a long distance from where we saw him. I find that so hard to believe. But again, anything is possible, as we've just been saying. So he could have got up with that very full belly of his and walked off the property, which would have been great for us to see, but alas, we were not in the area. But we'll snoop around and try and look for some of his tracks. I've just seen a few big elephant bulls here. There's lots of ellie bulls around, and that one female in the herd earlier definitely looked like she was in season. They're sadly moving off through some thick bush, but you should get a glimpse of their tusks. The one on the right you'll probably be able to see a little bit better as he disappears off. So good to have a lot of elephants moving around the property again, because they've been fairly scarce. But we're going to leave them wandering along through that thick block and continue along this road just to see if we can't find any tracks of this lion crossing over it. Jack in Romania, I don't really understand your question very well. So let me just have a go at it anyway. You've mentioned if the grazing animals are doing more browsing during the drought, does that mean that the shrubs that would be browsed on are more prevalent? There's more of them during the drought? Not necessarily. I mean, there's a mixture of both ways, and I'm not sure if James said that grazers are browsing more or vice versa, but I've noticed some of the browsers also doing more grazing. So I think it will fluctuate. It will merely depend on the individual species and the area. But no, there's not necessarily more stuff to browse on than to graze on. Maybe it'll go through a stage where, yes, you know, now there's lots of green grass after the rain, whereas a week ago there wasn't. So there you'll find grazers maybe doing more browsing because the trees have been able to withstand the drought slightly better than the grass has. But now that it's rained, you'll find browsers probably capitalizing on the grass, because that's going to be the sweetest, most nutritious thing available. Hope that answers your question. So I'm doing a big loop around the block. The lion was to the left. There was a report that other lions have been found to the south. We did hear other lions roaring to the south, so it may simply be that other lions were located and people are just assuming that it was the same one that was here that has moved there, which I'm hoping is the case. And if we don't find any of his tracks coming over this road, I'll go for a walk around that block where we last had him this morning. What doesn't help is that the Jeandre Roadworks team have been actively dragging tires along the road. Look at how smooth this road is on the right here. So it's dragged some massive tires behind it to keep the roads in good shape, but obviously that means if the lion had have walked down that road, we are not going to know anything about it. Hello, John in England. You would like to know if a buffalo would attack a lone male lion if it was wounded? Yes, certainly they would. They would claim revenge. And interestingly, there was an incredible photographic sequence that I saw quite recently of that exact thing happening, and the buffalo was the victor. It was an old male lion, also an old male buffalo, but in slightly better shape than the lion, and they went at it for hours, fighting with one another, but the lion lost in the end. Hello, little pigs. I'm sure you're enjoying the fresh green grassy shoots. That looks like a young female that would have been born this time last year. Oh. Hello, Sparkle Canyon Otter. You'd like to know the difference between browsing and grazing. Browsing is feeding on leaves. Grazing is feeding on grass. So grazing ground, browsing bushes on leaves. And yeah, that's all there is to it, really. Some animals will be mixed and do a mixture of both, like the impala, for example. They are mixed browsers, meaning they browse and graze. Others will only strictly graze. Hippo, white rhino. The black rhino is a browser, which feeds on leaves. It's got a hooked lip, whereas the white rhino has got a very square lip, like a lawnmower, for feeding on grass. The wildebeest, the zebra are all grazers. Hello, Michael in Arizona, who only joined on these live safaris 5 days ago, and very happy to hear that you're enjoying it, and also happy to hear that your favorite animal is the rhino. Now, sadly, as I think you would have gathered by now, we do not show rhino. We do not want to in any way assist poachers, even though the chance of us doing that is actually very slim, I believe. We don't want to take the chance of bearing the location of a rhino, the exact location of a rhino, so we don't show them on air. And you mentioned that you are aware that they are under huge threat from poachers, so glad you're up to date with that. It's a major problem at the moment. And at the current rates of poaching, rhinos are not going to make it. They are being killed faster than the living population can reproduce. So it is a major issue. You would like to know though, Michael, on top of the human poachers causing trouble, are there any wild animals that are assisting in declining their population? And yes, there is, but it's not common. Lions will from time to time kill rhino, usually younger rhino, or maybe a very old rhino. But it's risky business. Rhino are ginormous. They've got that big horn. They're hugely powerful. They're very quick as well. So not easy business for lions to catch and feed on them, but it does happen from time to time. Okay, well, it sounds like James and Jeandre are having some tech issues on their vehicle, so they're going to try and get that resolved. So you're going to be stuck with me for the foreseeable future, just to keep you updated on what's going on their vehicle. And maybe they can let Steph know that this lion's disappeared, so maybe he can come and have a look around here for him. That will be helpful for us. I know Steph was planning on coming out to help us. Where are you, Mr. Lion? I've never seen so many impala in this area, so it's making me feel like he could well have disappeared. I'm just going to take a huge gamble here and just drive off into the unknown, hoping that we find him sleeping under a tree. This was the general movement he was moving in, so maybe we'll get lucky. I want to go and check down in a area of riverbed where it may be nice and cool for him to seek shelter. Squeeze tight, everybody. Hello, CJ or BJ. I'm not sure which one. But you'd like to know whether it's CJ, you'd like to know whether or not we can be certain that it was one of the Birmingham boys that we saw this morning. I can't, but it is believed that it was the same male that was seen yesterday evening with James. So I think a lot of people believe that is the case. He did roll over at one point, revealing a little scar on the belly, and there was also a very prominent scar below the eye. But I don't consider myself a lion identification expert, so I can't be certain. I also haven't seen them for so long that it is hard to know what's happened to them in the months that they've been away. The last sighting we had of one of them until yesterday was on the 24th of December, and that was just one of them. and who knows how long it was before then that we saw them again. So we haven't been following them closely enough for me to be able to make calculated guesses as to what's been going on there. Maddie, sorry my friend, it is going to be sad that we can no longer go on safari together, but we will still be able to keep in touch on Facebook, and even though we won't be able to go on live scorpion hunts, what we will be able to do is hopefully I'll be able to find you some different scorpions wherever I end up that we don't find here, so you'll get to see some bigger, so maybe some nastier ones. We haven't showed you any very venomous scorpions since I've been here. We've only seen some friendly ones, so it'll be nice to show you some different ones, and that is a reason why I'm going, just to be able to see some different animals and see some different places, and I will be sharing as much of those adventures with you guys as possible. But I'm going to miss you too, Matty, so don't worry, it's not just you who's going to be feeling lonely and missing everyone on the Safari Live, and it's been so fun having you on all those scorpion hunts with me and sending through all those questions and being there and experiencing all the magical moments we've had. So don't be too sad, and like everything in life, everything kind of happens for a reason, and you just always have to be positive, and that way you will always make the most out of any situation you're in, I guess. Where's the lion? It was supposed to be sleeping here in the shade. What a nice spot. But no luck. No luck. And now, naturally, I'm kicking myself for leaving him when I did this morning. But I really did feel strongly like he was going to pass out. For those of you who were with us, you'll probably agree he was looking uncomfortable, tired, and I really didn't think he was going to move a muscle, but he did. Looks like he moved quite a few muscles, because he's nowhere to be seen. All right. Sure, Tony in London, you've just made life very difficult for me. You've given me a wild dog challenge between now and when I leave. It's going to be tricky, but possible. Oh, we nearly got attacked by a stray branch there. You may have gone flying up past us. Tony, definitely, I'll do everything in my power to get us into a good wild dog sighting if they're around. There's speculations that James was seeing things this morning, so even though he thinks he may have seen a wild dog running across the road, having chatted to Brian and Kirsty, they're not convinced. So that basically I'm having to burn James here just to let you know that there's probably not wild dog around, even though he seemed to think there were. It'll be interesting to know where that Sands pack has gone. I know the Investec pack was quite a lot further north of us in the Magnoleti Reserve. But a wild dog chaos sighting or chaotic sighting would be something that would be wonderful to share with all of you before I head off. Oh, well, there's good news. It appears like James has resurrected his tech problems, and you're going to go back onto his vehicle for an update. Maybe you can ask him whether or not he thinks he was seeing things, or whether he was confident that that was in fact a wild dog. And I guess you can let me know when you jump back on with us. Cool, see you later.
Happened here. Oh, I turned the radio off by mistake. Are we live? We're live? We're live. Sorry about that. I turned the radio off, everybody. You know, it's very difficult when you're as incompetent as I am to try and muddle along and live in a fashion that is acceptable to most people. I reached across, I simply turned the radio off. In a normal situation, I would then beat myself over the head. Shh. Look. It's a little barn swallow. And he's thinking about his long trip home to southern France, where he will probably sup on perfect vintages in the Luberon Valley. And they'll leave here probably at the end of this month, so they'll be fattening up on as many insects as they can, but of course, not many insects around. So I think that you'll probably find that our drought will even have a knock-on effect on how many of these little precious barn swallows get all the way back to southern Europe. Isn't he great? He's only sitting about, what, Jeandre, 3 meters from us, 4 meters?
Yeah.
That's about 15 feet. That is so cool. Now, there are a couple of interesting things to note about this barn swallow for as long as he sits there. The first is that you can see his forked tail. Now, that forked tail is very specifically designed for maneuverability in the air. And what it allows a bird to do is stop suddenly and change direction. There's a Franklin that is very upset it isn't the center of attention. And it can flare the tail and then pull it back in again. So when it's pulled in like that, there's no drag from it. It sort of decreases the turbulence behind it and reduces the drag. And then when it opens it and flares the tail, it's able to stop and turn suddenly. Then it's got those long or sort of, long and pointed wings, quite narrow. And that too allows it to glide and flap without having to use any kind of thermal. So it will, sort of self-propel itself all the time. And the other interesting thing about it, which you can't see unless it opens its mouth, is that its gape, which is basically the width of the mouth, is very wide. It's able to open its mouth so that it looks a lot wider than you can see it there. And that's to help it, because it grabs insects in the air, tiny little flies and things. So again, the brain capacity, the coordination and the neurological pathways that allow this little bird to fly up into the sky, pull G-force that is far greater than any fighter pilot pulls as a human being, and then catch tiny little insects in the sky is absolutely phenomenal. And we sit and I find lying on my back and watching swallows flitting about on the sky like this one of the most peaceful things I could ever do. And I don't think we often appreciate just the complexity of the operations going on in each and every one of these tiny little birds. That is fantastic. He's just looking around. So they'll shortly start to gather, and you'll start to see lots of them sitting together on telephone wires and on trees. And as the time for them to leave draws closer, probably sometime during, like I say, towards the end of this month, then one of them will decide, off we go. And then they shall fly as one huge flock back to Europe, over Africa. And what an amazing trip that must be for them to make. Talio, Jeandre, let's go to Buffelshoek Dam. My little swallow. I've seen him there before, actually. Wayne, you want to know if I ever found the wild dogs from this morning's drive? Wayne, I did not. I feel a great sense of shame at that. I didn't even find a track. And I started to doubt myself, but I'm very sure that I did see a wild dog. And the reason I'm so sure of it is that that dog, when I saw it, was about 200 meters away from us. It was obviously a dog through the binoculars. And when we got there were two hyenas looking around exactly the same as we were looking around, trying to see if they could find, I think, probably the dog. And the hyenas were lying about there because there was a kill in one of the trees. And we still haven't seen the leopard that has made that kill. And I'm assuming, therefore, that it is Jeandre, that very shy male. And I've no doubt that he is watching the kill with interest. And he'll probably just come out under the cover of darkness to have the rest of it. It's still hanging in the tree. I went to look now. It's still hanging in the tree there. So, Wayne, unfortunately, I did not find the single wild doggy that we saw earlier today. Rusty Pipe, you have just made an extremely unamusing joke. You say that you think the wild dog is hanging around with my crocodile. Rusty Pipe, if I wasn't such a sarcastic person myself, I'd say that you were being sarcastic there, Rusty Pipe. For those of you who don't know, Rusty Pipe is referring to a crocodile that I did see a crocodile, in Sydney's Dam a little while back. It was disputed by all. Doubting Thomases, all the viewers said it's the top of a hippo, and all my colleagues said, oh, it's the top of a hippo, until someone went back there, and actually Brent was guiding so he could drive straight to the dam, and there was my crocodile friend, Mr. Rusty Pipe. Same will go. Yeah, I will eventually be borne out. My evidence of the wild dog will be borne out. Man is meant to cope with these sorts of outrageous slings and arrows, as it were. Right, we're going to head down through the Morwati drainage line and go to the Treehouse Waterhole because there were male leopard tracks around there. And there we go. Jeandre is saying that the barn swallow occurs in the Netherlands, where she lives, and I think you'll probably get a few of them from here as well, Jeandre. And you say beginning of April they arrive, which means it'll be before the end of the March that they start to leave here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a 6-week trip, maybe not quite that long. Maybe it's a bit shorter than that. If anyone can tell me how long it takes them to get home, that would be great. Maybe, Jeandre, you can tell us. Of course, they don't breed here. So when I say go home, I mean that. They go and they breed in Europe, and they're visitors here, and we say visitors because they don't nest in this particular area. Many swallow species do, but the common barn swallow, the harbinger of summer, does not nest here. And I'm sure it must be so nice after a chilly European winter when the first swallow flies overhead. It's the same as when the first Wahlberg's eagle here arrives back. He's normally the first migrant back, or the yellow-billed kite. The two of them come sort of around the end of August. And for us then, we know that we're heading towards the springtime. Not that winter here is at all unpleasant. Iggy, you want to know how many times or how many types of swallow we get here in the Sabi Sands. Excuse me. There's a frog in my throat. We find barn swallows, one. Let's go through them. White-throated swallow, pearl-breasted swallow, red-chested swallow, lesser striped swallow, probably greater striped every so often, mosque swallow. So at least 7 species of swallow, which is quite an impressive turnout, really. And you also want to know if we get swifts. Yes, we do get swifts. We get Horus swifts, little swifts, white-rubbed swifts. And of course, we also get a few marten species. The common house marten we find, and a marten is very similar to a swallow. So, Iggy, lots of those special flying insect-catching birds. And as I was just relating the other day, and for those of you who heard it, I'm sorry about that, but there's an amazing species of swift called the edible nest swift. And they live in colonies of up to 3.5 million, not in this area. In fact, they're not even an African species. I think they're a South American species, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. They eat, per year, a colony of 3.5 million will eat 1,850 tons. That is, multiply that by 1,000, that's 1.8 million kilograms. And you can multiply it again by 2.2 to get pounds, and we get roughly 4 million pounds of insects every year. Now, can you imagine, were the swifts and swallows of the world to disappear for some reason, can you imagine how many creepy crawlies would be inundating our lives? I think we'd be covered. We'd be absolutely covered. If the signal does get dodgy here, I'm sorry about that. And Robin, in Maryland, you've got swallows obviously there. And shortly, well, in about a few months of time, you're going to have to start mowing your lawn again. And you say when you mow your lawn, the swallows follow you and swoop down and hawk insects out of the earth and probably go and perch again, because you obviously disturb insects and bugs as you mow your lawn. Yep, it's exactly the same as a drongo does, following around, and a starling following around the elephant and buffalo herds here. Some lovely deep shade. As I said to the school kids, well, I mean, some of you would have been joining us then as well. Just a very perfect afternoon. 33 degrees or so is very nice. 93 Fahrenheit. Some magnificent puffy white clouds. And I don't think it's going to rain, but they do break the light a bit and make it less bright. It's very beautiful indeed. And Micah, you say you wish you had a summer's day like us. Well, I would agree. Today's late summer's day is just absolutely perfect. The summer's days that we had in December and January were difficult to deal with. They were really, really hot. And I don't think that there are many people that would enjoy that. I know you think you would after the freezing cold winters that many of you are experiencing. Now, Sisal, you say you're confused, you're a new viewer, and you say we haven't found anything yet. Well, we have actually, look. There are some waterbuck. And so abundant are the animals here, Sisal, that we don't even have time to look at these before we have to go across to Scott, who's looking at some elephants.
Look at how awesome this caterpillar is. It's got this incredible silvery sheen, and it's doing a bit of a cliffhanger at the moment. Sure. Backing itself there. I don't want to keep it in this foreign habitat for too long, but take some screenshots. It'll be interesting to try and work out what moth or butterfly this caterpillar will turn into. But isn't it fascinating how they move? Yeah, such a hairy head, little spikes on its body. Awesome. I'm just going to try and get him to walk onto the stick, and then we can remove him. We've got another visitor, a little bit bigger than a caterpillar, making his way towards us. Look at this. Oof. Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Ooh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that. Stop that. That's unacceptable. No. You've got to stop doing this. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start up the car and chase you away. Come on, boy. What was that all about? Whew. Can you believe it? I've never had that happen to me before. Hey, Yeah, he can just waddle back down that road. Look at the big hole in his ear. Must have been a rebel in his youth. Had a piercing. Now, that was absolutely fascinating. Look at the way he's dangling his trunk over his tusk. And that's a sign of an elephant bull in must. You typically see that maneuver when they are in must, but that wasn't the case. He's not in must. You can see no dripping between his back legs. It's completely dry. But I think he's getting worked up because look at all those impala. Such an awesome display of size differences. It looks like he could possibly chase after them. He could be worked up, like I was saying, because there's a female that's in season nearby. So, look at all the impala running past, and that was too good to be true. Well, I was surprisingly quite calm there. Dave? Medium. I want to actually just jump out and see what happened there in the front of the car. Sure. I've never had an elephant do that. I've had elephants come close to the vehicle before, but he was like pushing up. You could feel the vehicle moving. He had his head pushed right up against the jack here. His tusks were touching the hood of the car at one stage. As I stand here, you get a good idea of size difference. I'm a centimetre under 6 foot, basically. So compare this to where he was up there. I'm sure some of you must have taken some screenshots of that, so you could possibly do a bit of an overlay. Whew. It would be terrible if I got squashed just days before leaving SafariLIVE, so it got me thinking. But it was just, he was inquisitive. He didn't seem aggressive or angry, or that's why I didn't really panic, I guess. He's still waddling off down the road there, still draping his tusk over his trunk. Let's go and, now that we've given him a bit of space, let's go and see what happens. Sure. I didn't forget about the caterpillar. I just dropped it off onto the ground just before the elephant came and started pushing the car around. If my mother was watching, she is probably currently pouring herself a stiff drink to calm down after that. Fascinating. James Saylor, you have inquired as to why I've lifted my hat. It's just it's something you can do, and it works surprisingly well, just to make yourself look bigger than you actually are. It's just, again, it's just a sign saying, hang on, you know, I'm standing up to you, possibly. Here he is again. What happened earlier there, boy? Oh, hang on. We've got impala alarming. Okay, hold on, everyone. We're going to need to rush around here. Go ahead, Andrew. No, we got nothing here. Okay, copy that, thank you. What is going on here? It's further up ahead of us, so these impala weren't the ones in question. Some impala up ahead. I've got a feeling, and I don't know why, that it's a python. I've just got this weird feeling within me that they've seen a python. I don't know why. It doesn't seem like a regular predator alarm call. road up ahead of us. I feel like we haven't found the ones that have actually seen whatever this threat is. Okay, we're getting closer. What is going on here? Bizarre. They seem to have stopped. I had one impala looking this way fairly intently. There's a whole host of them letting off like this half-hearted alarm call. And I don't know what could have caused it. That's why I had this feeling that maybe it's something like a python. Maybe it's going to be worth hanging around with me for a couple of minutes as we explore here, in case we do find whatever it is that got them excited. Pythons are a threat to impala. They can feed on an adult male impala, a big python. So I thought that maybe I'd spotted one of those. There's some rollers alarm calling up ahead. Some birds. Hello to Clan Wild Fury, and yes, hard to believe, but pythons will, digestive juicers, that there's a strong chance that it won't kill the python, and the python will just dissolve the horns off and the skin will heal and they'll survive. But you get some large African rock pythons up to 6 meters in length. Very, very fat, and they've got the abilities to unhinge their jaws, essentially disconnecting them and swallowing gigantic prey, as do most snakes. They can't bite off little morsels. They need to swallow their prey whole. Oh, I got so excited there. I thought we had found some kind of action, but alas, nothing. Just a gabillion impala. Maybe they were just getting worked up with one another. African rock pythons have got incredibly cryptic camouflage, so if it was one of them, it could just be coiled up, hidden, like most predators. Once the alarm call rings out, that is that. Okay, well, I don't think it's going to be worth you guys doing any more bushwhacking with us, so we will be sending you back to James while we try and find the road. Toodle-doo.
Well, that sounds like quite an adventure. We are not having quite the same adventure. We're just having a much more sedate drive at the moment. We're trying to find some leopard tracks, female leopard tracks that were found in this area this morning, and we're just seeing if we can't spot where they went. At the moment, we cannot. They headed into the block somewhere around here, and so we're just going to see if they didn't go across the road. And if not, well, we'll carry on and keep trying. And I don't know who this would be, but it's most likely either Karula or that female who comes in here. I think she's called Nkanyeni, if I'm not mistaken, and she sort of has this northern part of Torchwood and into a little bit of Buffelshoek. Hook. So it would be wonderful to see her again, but I have seen Karula in this area regularly. Anyway, absolutely nothing coming out on the road here. It's a bit sadness in my life. Steph is out now, going tracking with any luck. What is that up ahead? Oh, it's an impala. And with any luck, he might turn up that male lion, perhaps, or a wild dog. Yes, indeed, or maybe a wild dog. Or maybe a leopard. That would be nice. Starting to forget what they look like. So we're going to drive slowly up here and just keep an eye out for tracks. Look in all the marula trees. It's been a hot day, so there might be a leopard lurking in some of the boughs of the marula trees. And if there aren't, well, we'll find something else interesting. There are some impala up ahead. Perhaps they are being stalked as we speak. Let's go and have a look at them, turn off and have a bit of a listen, and then we'll turn around and head back south. We did go to Treehouse Waterhole. There was nothing there. There were tracks of a male leopard, but we knew that from this morning, and so we're kind of searching this area for him as well. With any luck, Mvula, who I haven't seen for a long time, and I suspect whose territory is being slowly overtaken, probably by his sons to the south, Quarantine Gunyuma, and probably also by Gijima, that new male leopard of this area. Right, here we go. It's the impala. Oh, look, Jeandre, that's quite interesting. There are two different sizes of lambs. See that? The middle one is much smaller than the others. Now, that is not a function of the drought. That's a function of the second breeding season that impala have. And he would have been born probably late last month. That's really cool to see. Looks tiny. And the others, of course, which look small until you see a really small one, were only born in November. So they're only sort of 3 or 4 months apart. Immensely fast growth rate. Unlike the human being, of course, which takes an interminable time to become mobile. It's so funny talking about that. A human being, once it does become mobile, of course, becomes an absolute heaving nightmare because it doesn't know what it can and can't eat. And so they run around the place, and I've watched parents in abject terror as their little toddlers become toddlers. It becomes so much more difficult to look after them. Ooh, also look, Jeandre, that little male has just had his horn eruption, and we were asked when the horns erupt. And I said this morning about 4 months, so let me just calculate that. Most of December, January, February, 3 months. 3 months the horns erupt. So we were asked this morning when Duiker horns erupt, so I would put Duiker male horns then probably at about 2 months, about a month earlier. Right, let's head back to an elephant with Scott at Treehouse Dam.
Okay, well, we've caught up with our elephant friend. He's at Treehouse Waterhole, and he's just arrived up thinking he's going to have a mud bath, so I just want to get us into a good spot. Yay, here he is. Slow down a bit so as to not excite him too much. And then I'm going to just loop down onto the other side of the waterhole and get a nice low angle, better sunlight. And we are going to get spoiled with some magical, magical views of him. Oh, this is going to be good, everyone. Here goes. He's busy churning up the mud with his foot there, you can see, creating the right solution that he can then grip up with his trunk and splay and splatter all over his body. I'm just going to keep quiet for a while and we can just listen and watch. as if he doesn't even know which part of his body he wants to cover in mud first. He's going on top, underneath, on the side. It looks like he's getting the perfect consistency churned up there. Hard to believe that he was resting those massive tusks in that trunk against our vehicle a few minutes ago. Hello to Lucy, Brian, and Inga, who have just furnished us with some very, very interesting information. And that is that this is the same elephant bull that had a very close encounter with Tara Perry. I think he also touched the vehicle, possibly not as much as he touched it with us, I don't think. And that is fascinating. He's obviously got that very distinctive hole in his ear, which is a great defining characteristic. Now, what's further interesting is that it's not uncommon for elephants, especially elephant bulls, to go very close to female guides who may be menstruating. Oh, look at this. He's plunging his tusks into the mud. You're going to break dance for us? Oh, this is so awesome. Look at that power. Fascinating. Look at all the mud on his tusks now. Polishing. Yeah. As I was saying though, before I pulled off that very strange stunt, it's not uncommon for elephants to investigate very closely females who may be menstruating. Now it looks like he's coming to say hello to us again. Boy, you cannot do what you did earlier. No. 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 You cannot do this. It is bad behavior. Settle down, boy. We will not tolerate that ill behavior again. We are loving you being so close. No. No, boy. No. 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 Go on. Whew. He is moving off, but we are going to send you across to James. And we are probably going to leave him be now. Hey. Settle down, boy. Settle down.
All right, we'll just let Scott get out of that situation. Excuse my glasses, of course. It's very bright out here. We'll keep you updated as things unfold. But I'm sure it's just a case of getting out of there a bit more quickly. He is moving away from the elephant. Everything is okay. Fear not. Now we are driving down, well, much the same way that we were. I'm trying, of course, to match the energy of the sighting you've just had. It's difficult when you're, you're looking at a couple of trees. They're pretty harmless. They don't tend to have a go at us much. Termite mound. So I suppose we could might be able to get a soldier termite to have a go at us, but that one was closed. Leopard tracks, maybe. No, none. Find a leopard. Marula tree, very nice. Elephants like marula trees, of course. Anyway, we will keep you posted. Seems like the situation has died down wherever Scott is. He's now left the elephant and is all good. It's good. Interesting that elephant seemed to have a bit of a history with WildEarth. Perhaps the same elephant, for those of you who are watching, that had a go at Tara Perry. The same thing, walked up to her, put his trunk on the car, and not his trunk, his tusk, and lifted it a bit. And then had an experience with Jamie where he walked up to her quite close as well. But didn't touch the car. So he's obviously a nasty, cheeky little buck. Oh, I nearly said a bad word there. Cheeky feather. Okay, let's head back to Scott and get an explanation from him.
Well, Dave Dave's heart rate and my heart rates are both skyrocketing, as I'm sure a lot of yours are as well. Words cannot describe what just happened there. Just the most fascinating behavior from this elephant. He's not being aggressive, he's simply being inquisitive. Obviously, 6 tons of inquisitiveness can be hugely scary, and even though he may not mean to harm us, he could very easily. That's why we did decide to start the vehicle, and what I did, he's just feeding gently over there now on the dam wall, as if nothing ever happened. At one point, I think I tried to push him away. That's why I've got some of his mud on my hand. He's also got all of this mud here from where he was pushing up against the vehicle. His tusk was literally right over here, and there's some more mud over here. That was scary. That was probably, well, it was by far the closest I've ever been to a wild elephant. Earlier on, you know, when we got a whole engine between us and him, it wasn't as bad. But when it was just this flimsy door, which is essentially as thick as a tin of baked beans, and when he was right here in all his glory, it was terrifying. I thought he would have also responded to my voice. You would have noticed how I tried to escalate my volume and my voice to try and deter him. In retrospect, maybe I should have been a little bit louder earlier on, possibly used the vehicle engine a little bit earlier on to prevent him getting that close, but I guess hindsight is easy to reflect on and say, I should have done this or I should have done that. But just the most fascinating interaction with African giants. And I'm very, very happy that you are all here alongside to experience that, because I do not think that is going to happen again in my lifetime, and possibly neither in yours. So a magical memory shared with many, many people. So good stuff, Dave. Bit of a baptism of fire there. Earlier on, when we had that young elephant bull close to us, right at the beginning of the show, feeding maybe a meter from the vehicle, afterwards Dave says, wow, that was incredible. I've never been so close to elephants. Well, little did you know, Dave, that shortly after that, we were going to have one pushing against the front of the vehicle. Shortly after that, one right here. Dave did a great job on camera there, so well done for keeping your head and not running for the closest form of cover. Thank you for not abandoning ship. And again, I don't think you will ever get to film something like that in your life again. So that is one to put in the memory bank in a very, very safe closet. And again, what a great privilege that we got to share that with people around the world. My mother would have had to pour herself 5 drinks by now if she's watching. Paul Rizzo, you would like to know why Kirsty decided to cut away from me. I think if you were the director, you would have done the same thing, Paul. If that elephant had have decided to squash me, which it could have at any moment, there's nothing to say that it wouldn't, it wouldn't have been nice for all of you to see. So I guess that's Kirsty's reasoning, and I think she definitely made the right decision. It was getting a little bit too hairy. There was nothing we wanted to hide from you. As you saw, the elephant was still there, feeding peacefully afterwards. But I think, yes, the fact, you know, there's only so much risk or gamble you can take on these live safaris, and we would hate for any of the younger viewers or any of the viewers to witness somebody getting attacked. The same thing happened when another presenter was charged. It was a very different scenario to what we've just encountered, and the elephant came running and crashing into the vehicle, and the director did the same thing. He cut to me in a lion sighting. It was 2 sleeping Matimba males somewhere on our northern boundary, and it was early in the afternoon. It was still hot. I knew that Mark was with these elephants. I heard of elephants. I thought, this is, elephant sighting. He's going to hold the fort for at least 15-20 minutes before they come back to me. And all of a sudden, I just heard, crash, cut, you're live. So I was like, welcome back, everyone. And the director didn't decide to tell me what actually happened. So I was just like, not sure why you've come to us so quickly, but the lions are still sleeping. Alex tells me that I must tell you that Mark and Romeo, the cameraman, are safe. Everything's fine. I only found out what happened when I got back to camp, so that was interesting. Anyway, I think he also made the right decision, because we don't want to be showing tragic scenes live to the world. So I guess that's that, Paul. To have a heart rate monitor there. That would have been fascinating. Sure. My hat trick didn't work too well the second time around, as you noticed. Maybe I need a bigger hat, a wide brim. Maybe one of the ones that the Australians use with corks on it would also have had a more desirable effect there. So I'm having some issues with my comms here. So I'm battling to hear the questions you guys are asking me. There we go, that seems to be better. Hello, Peter in Jacksonville. You'd like to know how long I would have stayed with that elephant, considering his behavior. Just as long as we did stay with him. No longer. So literally as you left us, I started the vehicle up, and he had moved around onto the other side of the vehicle, not touching it though, but close to it, and I just started up the vehicle, and that alone kind of made him stop, and then he thought about coming forward again, and I just revved like that, again making a noise, and then he took a few steps back. And then what happened afterwards was interesting, is that I very slowly, I didn't, are we going? I very slowly started creeping away. And as soon as I started creeping away, he started following. And then I stopped the car immediately, reversed, and did a loud rev as I reversed, just to say, no, you're not going to chase us. We are not running away from you. We're merely leaving because we've had enough. And if you think you can charge us, I can charge you as well. So that was the theory that I employed there. Nothing overly aggressive. It was just a little bit of I can see he's following, and I just, like that, just to say, no more of that. And then that stopped him, and then I slowly crept away. And he had, by that stage, decided to move on. So it's something important to remember if being given trouble by elephants. If you start fleeing, and that's why everyone says to you, your general rule in the bush or with any animal that's charging you in any continent, wherever you go, if something charges you, standing your ground is going to make it think twice. Even confronting it is going to make it think 3 times. But by turning and running, you're immediately saying, I'm out of here. And that makes the animal think, whoa, I'm coming after you, I'm going to get you, and I'm going to squash you. So even though we're smaller than animals, our brain power can sometimes make us more powerful than them, at least appear to be more powerful than them. And it's no different to if a human half your size came up to you and started being all aggressive, and you thought, jeez, this guy must know something. He's either a ninja or he's got a gun, or, you know, there's something that this guy is causing him to be very confident. And even though it may just be a display, it will make a human twice the size of that individual think twice about attacking him. Whereas if a person just runs off screaming, you're going to think, oh, well, I got this, I'm going to crush that person. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I see it, at least. Lots of you are asking whether Dave and I need to change our pants. Yeah, I'll speak on behalf of myself. Probably yes. I was concerned at the end there, because I mean it would have been, again, so easy for him. And even though I don't think he was wanting to harm us, he was merely being inquisitive. An animal of that size may not know its strength, and if he had have sneezed, he probably could have killed us there. So Shell in Detroit, you would like to know if the elephant was touching Dave at all, or the camera. It would have been close, but no, it wasn't, thankfully. Not that we can remember, at least. Phew. Oh, there's a little yellow-billed hornbill. Looks like it's just taking it easy, soaking in this wonderful evening. Have you had a successful day hunting, Mr. Hornbill? Or Mrs. Hornbill? Not too sure which is which. Ah, time to do some preening. Good idea. This is one animal that I'm going to miss. It's such a fun-looking animal. I really do love them. You don't get them in my hometown, Durban, or in Cape Town, Nikki's hometown, where we'll be spending the next couple of months working out what to do next. So I'm going to miss you guys. And your funny call I've just tried to impersonate. What I'm not going to miss is when they come banging they see their reflection on the glass doors that lead into Nikki and my bedroom. And in the middle of the day, while we're having a snooze, you'll hear ka-dunk, and they've landed on the floor and they're pecking, essentially themselves, their reflection in those glass doors, so they can be a bit of a nuisance when you're trying to have our midday siestas. The crested barbets also sometimes get involved in that. I think it's a good exercise workout for them. Certainly doesn't harm them, just keeps them occupied. So I haven't bothered too much about trying to change that. Great, well, we're going to leave this hornbill to its own devices, continue searching for anything interesting for you guys, and while we do that, we are going to send you back to Mr. Jeandre. Goodbye.
Hello! I am up here for a specific reason. I'm trying to get to the mistletoe over there. Now, the reason for that is not so that I might hang it over Jeandre's head and he can give me a little kissy. Oh, no. It is, in fact, so that I can retrieve some of the fruit. Because about the fruit I have been reading. And the fruit is, well, it's very sticky. It's got something in it called visium. And visium, apparently, is how this plant breeds. Now what it does is it's specialized in by something called a yellow-fronted tinker barbet, which is a very pretty bird, which I cannot show you from where I currently am. And it makes a call that goes all day long. They eat about 170 of the fruits every day. And what happens is that the fruit is digested within the stomach of the bird. The skin comes off within the stomach, and then they regurgitate it. And it's covered in this viscium. And the viscium then sticks to the bird's beak as it is regurgitated. The bird then cleans its beak upon the tree, and then the seed sticks to the tree. And, oh, here we go. I can't believe I found one. So this particular little piece of plant here, I don't know if you can see it clearly, is the mistletoe, and it's growing from, I can't even find the source of it, there are a few different plants. It's actually growing, Jeandre, from the edge of the sort of further sticky outy branch. There's a huge gall from which this plant is growing, and I'll bring down the seeds now and you can have a look at them. Now we'll try and sort of pick out the sticky viscium, and you can see exactly what it is that the bird gets stuck to his beak before he then sticks it on the side of a tree, and it then grows from there. Jeandre, why are you giggling? Here we go. Beautiful sunset about to take place with any luck. And marvelous clouds, as I said earlier, allowing us to enjoy the afternoon without the blinding light of the sun. Now, one other interesting thing about this tree, Jeandre, if I might, before I fall out of it, is the state of this branch I'm standing on here. You can see that it's bent at a kind of odd angle. And it's bent at this angle because an elephant has pulled it off a few times, and it's kind of growing all over the place. And this is, of course, a great adaptation of the marula tree. It has learned to cope with the machinations and attacks from elephants that beset them every so often. Elephants love the fruit. Elephants love the bark. Elephants love the leaves. All right, this is going to be the awkward bit. Here we go. And we're down. Jeandre, why aren't you clapping? You would be if you weren't operating the camera. Thank you very much, thank you. Whew. Here's the seed, or the fruit. So what the barbet will do is eat this green thing, and in its stomach, of course, is a gizzard, and the gizzard is a little kind of muscular pouch that's filled with stones. And that muscular pouch will tear off, here we go, this is going to be fascinating, will tear off this bit, the green bit, and then the barbet will regurgitate this seed. How's this? This is incredible. It will regurgitate the seed will get stuck on the beak, and you can see all that viscium there. And it cleans the beak against the branch, so it'll fly off, and then you've seen birds cleaning their beaks against the branch, and that will stick against the branch from which a new mistletoe plant will grow. How cool is that? I think that's really cool. Okay, there it is. We'll see if we can get one to sprout from there. It's very, very sticky. Let me plug myself back in and we'll carry on our search for the leopard. I'm really glad we managed to do that. I was terrified that when I got up there would be no fruits, and if there were no fruits, then I'd just have looked like a palooka standing in a tree. Well, wouldn't be the first time I've looked like a palooka standing in a tree. I think we're in for a magnificent sunset today. You have obviously been watching a while, and you saw me plant at one stage the seed pod of a leopard orchid. That was also with Jeandre, wasn't it? Planted it in a tree at the Buffles, not the Buffles, at the Jeandre Dam, in a knobthorn tree, and it looked like it was doing quite well until one day I went to check in it, and as I got there, I saw a beastly little squirrel come running out of the hole where I'd planted it, and it had devoured the entire thing, so it didn't in fact germinate at all. I need to do a little bit more research, I think, on how to propagate the leopard orchid, because I think it could be quite an interesting thing to try and grow. Anyway, There we go. Jeandre, shall we see if we can grow this one? I'll tell you what, we'll try and plant that seed. I've got a few in my pocket, and we'll see if we can't plant one of them on a tree around camp, and we'll see if it grows. Now, there's some concern about these mistletoes that they are, perhaps because of the drought, they're not as affected by drought as other trees are, because they just suck the kind of moisture out of the trees, and that they are causing die-off on the marulas. And the marulas are actually starting to slough off. So sacrifice the part of the tree that is being affected by the mistletoe. So that was a very big mistletoe plant. And it was, I don't think it's, I mean, maybe it's a coincidence, but it was a fairly scraggly marula tree. And the big, healthy marula trees, you don't see these mistletoe plants in. It's those ones with the scraggly leaves that you often find them in. And what the trees can do is then sacrifice the limbs that the mistletoe are growing on. They shut off all circulation, and those branches will then fall off eventually, and the mistletoe will plummet to the ground. And I think that's what was going on. Now, apparently Scott has got some male leopard tracks on, well, not too far from where he was last seen. So that's quite interesting. I, of course, came here in the hopes of finding male leopard tracks. I have found mistletoe. Anyway, we'll keep on keeping on. Thank you. That was very nice. A viewer gave me 8.3. I think it's Beth. Gave me an 8.3 for my tree climbing efforts. Jess gave me struggling to hear names today. Jess, you gave me an 8.3. I think it's, well, I mean, it's quite kind. It's not very kind. I think my tree climbing was quite good there. Jeandre, what would you give me? 2. Okay. Well, Jess, thank you. You're obviously much more generous than Jeandre. We're going to go back towards the waterhole at Buffelshoek and see if we can't find some more tracks there. Or perhaps, now that the heat of the day is kind of starting to ebb, perhaps a lion or a leopard will come out and have a drink. We still don't know where the rest of the Nkahuma pride is. Angela, you have the final control of fits of hysteria. You say that, was I a monkey in my previous life? You've never seen anyone bend their body in the way that I do to climb a tree. Angela, I may have been a monkey, I may have been a cockroach, I'm not really sure. But certainly I do enjoy climbing trees. I wasn't very good at it as a youngster, but now as I've matured into ripe old, almost middle age, so I have enjoyed climbing trees even more. Whether I was a monkey or not in a previous life, I'm not sure. Now, Marianne, I think you might be right. You say that you've been taught your entire life that mistletoe berries are poisonous. Now, Arkansas is obviously far removed from where we are here, and there will be many different species of mistletoe, and sometimes I don't even know if they're related plants, because there are often English conventions that we use kind of, you know, across the pond, as it were, that aren't necessarily the same. So, for example, what you'd call a buzzard, we'd call a vulture. What you'd call a turtle, we'd call a tortoise. And so I'm not sure if the mistletoe there is actually related to this mistletoe. I suspect it probably is distantly, though, and I wouldn't put this in my mouth. I think that it can be quite toxic to human beings, but it certainly isn't to the birds, and especially not the yellow-fronted tinker barbet, which enjoys immensely 170 fruits in a day if it can eat them. Can you imagine how many of them get distributed around the place? And Angela, you want to know if mistletoe is seasonal, if it grows all season? It's definitely seasonal. Remember that it gets its nutrients from the tree. So if the tree goes, it's a parasite. If the tree goes dormant, so too must the mistletoe, because it won't be able to get any more, anything in the way of water. So Absolutely, they are seasonal growing, and that's why it's, I mean, we're going into autumn now, and so it will start to produce the fruits, as do many, many trees around the place. We've got our guarri trees. Marula's a bit different. Sour plum's a bit different, but certainly a lot of the berry-bearing fruit, or berry-bearing trees are starting to produce their fruits now. And the mistletoe is no different. A very pretty sunset there that we can see. Kirsten's just pointing that out to me. Thank you, Kirsten. I'm looking for a leopard, of course, fading dismally at this stage. The other interesting thing that happened while you were away chatting with Scott was that Jeandre, of course, doesn't realize this, but he nearly ended his life on a marula tree by mistake. He was leaning from the back of the car doing sit-ups. Of course, he hooked his legs under the seat here, and he was merrily doing his stomach exercises, and I looked behind me, and I mean, there was a marula tree right close to the road, which he didn't see at all, and, well, he nearly basically was cut off midway, as it were. There's quite a bitter link coming up here. Apparently, Scott is actually tracking a leopard as opposed to hoping to track one. So let's get across to him and get an update there.
You see, a guide of James's wisdom and experience doesn't actually need to track animals. He can sniff them out with his nostrils. So, I mean, it's only due to my inexperience that I have to do this hard work, dangling my head over the side of the vehicle, trying to work out what these big cats have done. James just has a feeling and finds them that way. There were big male leopard tracks. I think they're fresh. I think they're from sometime this afternoon. They look very crisp and clean. Now, heading up towards this direction past the Philemon's Dip pump house. From that point, I have lost the tracks. I'm not too sure where that leopard headed. It could be that I'm wrong and the tracks are not fresh, and that's why I've lost where they've gone on a busier section of road where people have driven over those tracks. Or maybe he's just lurking somewhere in this little riverbed off to our right. There were one or two go-away birds calling, quang, quang, just off to our right. It'll be a wonderful, wonderful way to finish off what's been an incredible safari with all of you. If we do manage to find this big male. But it doesn't appear that he's come this way. I can see a few monkey tracks. This is another road that was dragged today with tires, so it's incredibly easy to see any tracks on it. It's a perfect fine film of powder. Exactly what you want to be tracking on. There are only a few monkeys that were running down in this direction that I can see. Hello, Jen Sherman, who has said that the go-away birds will always remind you of Nikki and myself, and I take that as a compliment. They are wonderful birds that I'm very happy to be associated with, so thank you for that, Jen. And my offering to you, Jen, is a beautiful sunset that I'm going to turn around for. And just show you a glimpse of, I mean, look at that. Beautiful. The sun just dipping below the horizon, some silver cluster leaves in the foreground, one or two marulas, and a bearded woodpecker doing its loud drumming call in the background. It'll do it again. Come on. Absolutely magical. The birds are all singing, Cape turtle dove, woodland kingfishers. That was a Cape turtle dove you heard there. And Murphy's Law, as soon as we give the birds some praise for their wonderful call, they go quiet. There's the woodpecker again. It's the only woodpecker that will drum loudly to communicate with other woodpeckers of its type. It's called the bearded woodpecker. Cuckoo-roo, cuckoo-roo. It's a Cape turtle dove calling. Another animal that would be wonderful to hear and possible while we are sitting here silently enjoying the sunset is, of course, this leopard that we're looking for. We could hear its loud rasping. That would be nice. All right, let's try and get... Oh. Whole host of Franklin has got the fright of their life. I wonder what caused it. Let's race in there. Maybe it's the leopard, maybe it's not, but let's take a gamble. Oh, little wheel spin. That wasn't intended. It could just be that stage of the evening where they fluttered off. They do get quite vocal at this stage of the evening. But then again, it could have been something that did give them the fright of their life, and because there is this little fairly open section that we can poke our noses into, it may be worth just seeing if we can't find where they are. If we find them elevated, sitting in a tree looking down, that would be a great sign, because that's usually the behavior that they perform when there's a ground predator, i.e. a leopard. Whereas if they stay on the ground, then that's usually a good indicator that it is a aerial predator that's giving them a hard time. Huh. Well, everything appears to have calmed down to a panic. Just listening carefully though, just to make sure I can't show any other birds. You know, the Franklin may have got a fright initially, and then other birds like rattling cisticolas or go-away birds could continue the alarm. It's such a beautiful evening. Let's keep on taking a look at what's going on to the west there. Clouds are getting illuminated, that light orange, beautiful scenes. Cape turtle dove. But definitely no more panic that I can hear regarding any of the species that will alarm call. So let's stick with the initial plan, which was to head back up to quarantine, which is a large open area where we'll hopefully be able to get you the last few moments of the sunset. And while we race across there, we are going to send you back to James.
Now, I don't know what to say. I was told that Scott was tracking a leopard and describing the sunset and showing it to you at the same time. We can't see the sun from where we are. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, yes, we can. We can see it there. Jeandre, show everyone the sun, quickly, before they don't believe I can find anything. There, I found the sun. Phew. Kirsten says Scott's was better. Kirsten is going to find the grey tree frog that we found in the bathroom today in her pillow this evening. And I can hear the massing. I'm really getting it in the neck today. Sorry, the grey tree frog that Nikki found in the bathroom today. But what I can hear, if I might trouble the final control to possibly turn up my audio, I don't want to put them out at all, is the massing of the European bee-eaters. And the massing of the European bee-eaters there means that they are also thinking about going home, back to Europe, where it is that they also breed much like the swallows. And I think they will leave at a similar time, maybe a little bit later, maybe a few weeks later. And I think I'm going to sit just right here until the sun dips down below the horizon. Let me just turn this game drive radio off. There you can hear them. Chip, 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 chip. Wonderful, wonderful sound. It's always made me feel attached to the wilderness, the European bee-eater, because we used to find them in Johannesburg as well. And so when I was sort of feeling down and I went for a walk along the sort of dirty river that they had there, quite a nice green belt though, the bee-eaters would mass on the telegraph poles, and it was just lovely to have them there. A nice connection to the wild, as is that incredible sunset. Right, on we go. Jeandre, why have you not spotted a leopard today?
Not found its attraction.
That is also true. Fair point. Now, the first time Jeandre came on drive, there was a leopard sitting right there, and we drove past, and of course Jeandre, it was his first day, and I thought he was this great galumphing palooka with enormous calves on the back of the vehicle, and he said, I think there's a lion in there, and I said, don't be ridiculous, I definitely would have spotted it. Well, it wasn't a lion, but it was Mvula. So I was hoping he'd rather fancy a repeat performance today, but alas, he has not. Perhaps there is still time. No alarm calls this side of the reserve. And interestingly, you know, Buffelshoek Dam was a focal point for a long time. When the beginning of the drought came, it was the only kind of natural, well, semi-natural waterhole that had water in it, unpumped waterhole. And then it dried out completely for the first time, I think, in 20 years. And now nothing has come to drink there. I haven't seen anything come down to drink. Just a few birds have returned, but not much else has come back there. And I think it's indicative, A, of how much water there is, and B, how amazingly resilient and adaptable the animals are. I don't know where the hippo that lived there has gone. I don't know where the hippo that lived in Peter the hippo that lived in the pan, I don't know where he's gone either. But quite possibly up to Buffelshoek, at least up to Sydney's dam, where after that rain, there'll just be that much more water. And Marianne in Arkansas, a good question. I don't know where the hyenas have gone. They may well be still in their normal den. I just haven't been to look this afternoon. But I'll make an effort to try and go around there tomorrow morning, and we'll see what's happening there. So for those of you who don't know, we did go and check this morning, and there was absolutely nothing going on. Then we checked all the other den sites that we know of, and there's one on Aubrey's Road, which is a very small and sort of unsalubrious neighborhood. There are no nice shady trees over it or anything like that, and there's definitely not space for all of them in there. And there was a lot of hyena track around the place and a fresh bone, so maybe a few of the youngsters have been moved in there. I'm not sure, but we'll unravel the mystery of the hyenas fairly soon, and we will certainly try and do that, but the area in which they live is very full of deep drainage lines, so it sometimes takes us a little while in order to get in there and have a proper look. I'm not convinced they've moved. I just think that after it was A, starting to smell, B, the lions came round there and a lioness stuck her head right into one of the holes, and then C, they had that big conflict with the wild dogs, which I think would probably have unsettled them slightly, even though they caused it, of course. And then there were two youngsters around about where that leopard kill was this morning. Well, one youngster and one adult, probably Pretty, and then they headed off. Pretty didn't head off towards the den site. She moved off in a slightly different direction. So I don't know. We will find out, and that's the great and exciting thing about what we do out here, is that we learn all the time, and B, the mysteries of the wilderness continue to confound us. We're now pulling onto Buffel's hook cut line. I thought I saw an elephant there, but I didn't. No. And we'll see if there are any further tracks coming across here. I didn't find any tracks on the cheetah cut line, so that female leopard whose tracks went in there at some stage must be still around there, but I don't know. They do tend to be quite spirit-like, the leopards of this area. Still got a frog in my throat. Just check something quickly. Right, on we go. The sun is now set, of course, which means we must put on our lighties. What I'm going to do is do one more turn past where that leopard kill is and see if we can't find something there. It's interesting. And Zoe, you want to know, obviously during winter the dawn chorus is that much more quiet, and you want to know if I associate any particular bird with the winter time. The one bird that is always here, always doing a great performance, no matter what time of the year it is the lilac-breasted roller. So I suppose I would associate them, but then also the starlings start to flock. The Birchall starlings, instead of occurring in ones and twos, occur in quite big flocks. So I suppose those would be the two birds that I associate with the winter time. But otherwise, no. I mean, everything is so quiet during the winter. I mean, you can stop in the morning and just hear the odd dove calling, maybe the odd franklin, but otherwise it can be deathly, deathly hushed during the course of a morning. And so one doesn't normally associate birds with the winter here. Excuse me. On the coastal areas you would, of course, because a lot of the birds will migrate in for the winter. And Gilly, I completely agree with you. I have the same feeling here. You say you hate it when the swallows leave there and go south for your winter and our summer because it means that the summer's over. Absolutely, I feel the same thing. I certainly felt it in Johannesburg far more because Johannesburg, of course, is very cold in the winter time. But here, it's really so nice in winter that it doesn't. Nice. It's not as nice as the summertime, but it certainly is very pleasant, and especially after this summer, I think we'll be quite pleased to have some warmth, at least some cooth. I called a lion, or at least I called a buffalo a lion today, so the fact that I confused warm and cool is not that unusual. Hello, Jeff. You say, when will the dry season start again? Jeff, I mean, we haven't really had a wet season, but in theory it should start kind of at the end of this month, and it would go through until about November. So we have a very long dry season here. We might have the odd little bit of winter rain, but not much. That's in a normal year. I couldn't possibly tell you what's going to happen now. But normally by the end of March, maybe the end of April, the rains have ceased completely. And then we'll have 3 months of the most astonishingly perfect weather. There'll be 1 or 2 days when you'll get a cold front coming through, but otherwise it's just clear skies, balmy, warm days and chilly mornings. It's beautiful. Just all in these puddles. Now, we were asking about why, we have been asked a few times about why we're not seeing, you want this puddle, do you, Jeandre? It's much less impressive puddle, but you can have this one if you want. There, thank you. Well, that's a decent-sized puddle, really. This is a joke. There, it's a much better puddle, don't you think? We've been asked why there are no animals at the Jeandre Dam pan at the moment. Well, that's why. There's lots of water around the place now. It won't last long unless we have more rain. Within a week, those will all be dry. But that's why the Jeandre Dam pan is that's why the Jeandre Dam pan is not active. I'm laughing, of course, because I don't know what I've done to cause offence, but I'm getting it in the ear sarcastically from Kirsten, who says, when I've left the high action pan, could we link across to Scott? Over to Scott.
So I've decided to come back into the general area where we did have this big male lion this morning, in the hope that we may be able to hear some no, just did an update saying that there's a lion crossing out of Jeandre right this second. Copy that, Jeandre. Does he have a big scar below his left eye and a wound on his belly? Oh well, that could have been our lion that we were looking for. Oh, that's so frustrating. Yeah, Jeandre's getting back to me now, but he only had a brief glimpse. And he's following some buffalo. Torture. Okay, copy that, Jeandre. Thank you very much. So, no problem at all. Shame, Johanna's in the same boat as us. He cannot go any further than our southern boundary. So to wave a sighting like that goodbye is obviously soul-destroying. But there's good reason for the traversing agreements that are in place. It's just sometimes it can be torture. More torture for Johanna, I guess, than for us. He's the one who saw the lion, saw the buffalo, and then waved them goodbye. At least we're just cheering about it. But there is good news, and that is that Steph, who's been doing a bushwalk through this area, has bumped into a large breeding herd of buffalo. And they are somewhere just up ahead of us, so let's go and see if we can't find them. And who knows, maybe we'll find some other lion that are following them. It certainly is possible. There was tracks of predators all over the property this morning, both for lion and for leopard. We were only successful, sadly, in locating one of those predators, the big male lion, but there could be others lurking nearby. Let's go and see what's happening over here. The lion we're apparently heading towards where we've just come from, somewhere in this quite thick block on the left of the road. And large breeding herds of buffalo are a favorite of lions, more so than the big old bulls, because it's a lot easier to take down younger calves or weaker old females than the big old bulls. But there's a catch to that whole system, and that is that the large herds have generally got large numbers. That's why I guess they're called the large herds. And those numbers can rally up and regain composure after initially being chased by a lion, and then chase the lion off any unfortunate buffalo that may have been brought down. And very often buffalo will save fellow herd members from lion. Where's the buffalo? got a visual of the first customers, and this is perfect. They're on each side of the road, slowly feeding towards us. They seem quite spread out at the moment. Hello, Joyce in New Hampshire. You would like to know if the Cape buffalo is any way related to the American bison? Good question. Not that I know of. But they are certainly quite similar beasts, so there's a chance that that is the case. Look at this lady giving us a very wary eyeball. Sadly, that little clump of round leaf teak is covering the center of her head, but although now it's blowing out of the way, and you'll see that and notice that she doesn't have a big crown of horn in her middle parting. She's got a hairy kind of center parting. That is indicative of the females. Both the male and female buffalo will have horns, so you cannot use horns as a distinguishing feature for genders. Let's see if we can't get deeper into the herd and get you some better views. Okay, we need to get you across to Joe's quickly. He's got some warthogs.
Look, everyone, there's the hind end of a sounder of warthogs disappearing into the bush. I'll show you where they came from. Well, Jeandre will. There, they came out of that mound. There's a hole there, and they just don't like the sound of the vehicle. I'm not going to hang around here. I don't want them to feel like they have to go rushing off into the bush. But we've been now past here the evening round about this time 3 or 4 times, and they stick their heads out, and you put the camera on them, and you think you're going to get a link, and then they go. They all leap out as fast as they can. How they all fit in there, I don't know. There are 5 little ones and 2 adults. How they fit in that tiny hole, I can't imagine. It must be very hot. Let's go back to Scott with his buffalo.
Now, something caused the buffalo to get a fright. It could simply be that there's some male impala coming running in our direction. The buffalo all started stampeding off. They're looking back now in the direction that the buffalo came, the impala came running from, and I think they just got an unnecessary fright from impala. Although no, yeah, I can hear buffalo stampeding further up ahead. Listen to that. Are there lions nearby? It's very thick in here. I just want to try and get behind these buffalo and see what may have been causing them to run. It could simply be that there's sense of lion in this area. That male lion did walk down this road last night. We backtracked him after we left him this morning. So maybe they can just smell him and are cautious for that reason. It's a very large herd of buffalo, of which I think I can see a few more members here. Or these elephant, no, these are elephant now. Huh. Just found a little gap. There's some ellies, but I'm not going to spend time with them. I'm just going to try and work out what's going on, what's causing these buffalo to stampede. Sparkle Canyon Otter, you would like to know where is the lioness that was with the male, with James last night? We're not too sure. We don't know where she has gone. We did have tracks of a single lioness on our northern boundary close to Sydney's Waterhole that looked to have come into Jeandre, but we couldn't work out exactly where she had gone. I'm going to turn around. It's so incredibly thick that I don't want to go crashing through this block in search of whatever has disturbed the buffalo. I've got a feeling that it's just a false alarm. Somebody asked this morning what would be the one thing that I would love to see before I leave, and it would be probably an epic lion buffalo hunting sequence. Something that we haven't got to see that often, and it's one of the most awesome showdowns between two incredibly powerful animals. And who knows, maybe we're just about to get spoiled with that. Hello, Gracie, who's just 8 years old, and you have inquired as to what about the tea party that I promised we would have across at Arethusa, and why don't we do that tomorrow afternoon, Gracie? We'll go and set up something and have a little tea party across at Arethusa. How does that sound? You let me know, and that would be great. But we can definitely do that before I head off. Hello, our beard. You would like to know if we are going to be doing a fireside chat for Nikki and I's farewell drive on Saturday, and yes, we will. For probably the last half an hour of the safari, we will be around a campfire discussing a few things, maybe showing a few clips. So yes, that's something to look forward to. I know we haven't done a fireside chat for quite some time. It's usually on a Sunday night for the new viewers, but Saturday will be Nikki and my last day here, so we'll be doing it then. So yes, that's correct, and we're certainly looking forward to it. The buffalo seem to have calmed down now, so maybe it was merely a false alarm. They just had a little bit of extra energy, and possibly this windy weather is also going to cause them to be on edge. The wind is literally just picking up now, and that's going to make the evening a tough one for them, because they are going to not know very well if lions are creeping up on them, or if it's just the sound of the leaves rustling in the wind. Great, well, as we watch this herd disappear off into the thickets, we are going to be sending you back to James.
And the calm of the evening has descended here. You can hear maybe a red-backed shrike going chook, 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 the odd robin. And of course, the hippopotamus come out of the water to graze. What he's eating there, other than sand, I can't imagine, but I think he will find some green grass somewhere around here. Just shining over the western horizon. Well, that's the northwestern horizon at the moment. You can see it getting much more bright towards the western side or the left-hand side of your screen. Certainly one of my very favorite times of the day. Well, I'm very pleased that we could deliver a hippopotamus to you, Sparkle Canyon otter. That is, of course, daily. We learn a new Twitter handle that is astonishing. a sparkle handle otter. Wonderful. Now, interestingly, those Egyptian geese have almost the identical diet to that hippopotamus. They are grass and leaf eaters, unless you happen to find those odd ones at Buffelshoek Dam, and they eat fish, which is quite astonishing. And the hippos will be very grateful for the slightly cooler weather. They don't like that blinding heat that we've been having, and they'll enjoy the fact that despite the fact their water is, well, not compromised, but there's just less of it, they can at least cope with the heat. The perfect time of the day, this, to just sit and take a deep breath in and be grateful for living in a place like this. You can just see him shining there, the mud on the hippo shining in the last light of the day. Thank you, Oki in Oklahoma. That makes me feel much better indeed, I must say. You say that, you know, we like to see the animals all the time, but you like, and you do too, but you like to come along just for the ride as well. Thank you. That does make me feel better after a drive like today. I'm glad that driving about looking for things as opposed to actually seeing them was still relatively entertaining for you on the back of this car with Jeandre and I. Thank you for that, Oki. Okay, I think we're going to leave the waterhole now and make our way slowly down Aubrey's Road. And the reason for that, of course, is I just want to see if there aren't any hyenas there. And we're not going to go to any den site because it's a bit dark. But I did hear hyenas calling earlier. And they were calling definitely from the original den site on Mvubu Road. So maybe they're all still there, but maybe the clan has just split up a little bit. And that's also not unusual. Let's shine the light. Quite a wind coming up out of the southeast, sort of taking away any clouds that there were. There's an exceptional pile of zebra dung there, Jeandre, that you missed. I'm most impressed that I managed to find that. It was perfect, you know, perfect pile. Everything arranged symmetrically. Question yesterday about the different vegetation types that we get here, and this is quite an interesting one as we just drive through here. You don't need to bother to let's go down that way. And this is called a sodic area, and what it means is that the soil is particularly rich in, unsurprisingly, sodium, and that makes the grasses very nutritious. And that's why when there's a little bit of rain and the green stuff comes up, there will be an enormous attention focused on a place like this by the grazing herbivores, which are now not with us anymore. Interesting question from Angela in Boston. You want to know if our senses get heightened during a night drive as compared with a daytime drive. Angela, I think first of all our senses get heightened just by being out here and by trying to look for animals. We listen so carefully all the time. The sense of smell becomes so much more important out here. And then the seeing, of course, you do see things, I think, more acutely than you would if you lived in a city where you don't have to use your eyes quite so much. At night, though, yes, I suppose our ears and our noses perhaps become slightly heightened because obviously we're semi-blind compared with many of the animals out here. I suppose they would. So, I mean, I've certainly noticed when I go to town now, I'm just that much more aware of things around me. And it's funny, you walk into a shopping center, and you've all had this experience, where you'll walk into a shop, but you'll be walking behind somebody and they'll just stop. They'll have absolutely no awareness of what's going on behind them at all, and you'll bump into them or you'll have to quickly avert going around them. And I find, for me, when I go into the shops, I'm constantly looking kind of over my shoulder as if I'm on a bushwalk and looking around, sort of keeping my 360-degree awareness. And I find other people don't do the same thing. Well, why should they? They're not generally expecting to be leapt upon while they buy their weekly eggs or underpants. I'm not sure why I chose underpants as an option there, Jeandre, because not many people buy them on a weekly basis, do they?
Unlike you, I tend to change mine more than once a week.
Right, okay. Well, that's good. So yes, indeed. The senses do get a little bit heightened during the darkness. All right, we're going to head back to Scott before I say anything else particularly stupid.
So, what is the cover of darkness going to unveil for us tonight? Time will tell. Oh, bush baby. Just keep on there. This is its home. And we've just found a bush baby nest, which is incredibly fortunate. Let's just get into a comfortable spot here. Probably there. Okay. In that little fork of the tree there's a hole. And if you just go down a bit. Okay, are you fully zoomed in? Straight into that little hole there, Dave, just below the green leaves is where we are. So that's you're perfect. And you can see a little bit of movement there. We are going to get some incredible views of this bush baby. As it begins to poke its head out, they've got massive, massive eyes that you're going to begin to notice. Oh, there's its hand. You may have just got a glimpse of its little hand. And I'm fairly certain that if we just be a little bit patient, it is going to pluck up the courage to poke its head out and give us some great views of it. This is so wonderful that we found their little nest in this tree, because now we know that we can come back here and find them. There was two. I saw two little tails doing their best to creep into that little hole. Come on. You can see its massive eyeball checking me out as I made that funny squeaking sound. I've once made that noise and had bush babies come bounding through the bushes towards me, but only once. Never again. I tend to keep trying it, hoping that it will happen again. Let's see what happens if we do it one more time. It's having a look. Hello. Hello, you little cutie. For those of you who are new to the SafariLIVE experience, a bush baby is essentially a nocturnal primate. Oh. So it's a monkey that does its business at night. It's got the ability to launch itself from a standstill, then flying at 6 to 10 feet in the air and landing perfectly on a branch after dark. So they are incredibly skilled and agile nocturnal critters. And interestingly, what they feed on is mainly sap from trees, or the gum from trees. And they'll actually go in and tap into various parts of various trees and then go in and a couple of days later, or maybe the following day, to essentially feed on the sap that's been oozing out of the tree while they've been gone. So they are professional gum tappers, you could say. They will also occasionally feed on insects, but it's mainly a diet of sap from trees or gum from trees. We do one more squeak and see if we can't get it out. We've got a little bit of movement there. Jeff has just mentioned that if you do that same noise in America, you'll get raccoons coming to investigate. So that's interesting. Such a pity that we can't get a better angle. I'm trying to think of how we can reposition to possibly try and poke our noses in that hole, but I don't think we're going to get lucky. So let's just stay here and maybe they will poke their heads out. We are very close to them. We're probably only about 4 meters away, so it would be an incredible sighting if we did get them to come out, but I fear while we are this close, we may not get lucky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the spotlights off for a while and see if that doesn't allow them to relax. Oh no, then you can't see anything. Tricky. What to do, what to do. Hello Smiles on Twitter, and you have been fascinated by these interesting little primates and are going to be doing some research as to where exactly they fit in on the whole scale of primates, and that will be interesting. Do let us know what you come up with. This is the lesser bush baby that we get in this area. You also get the greater bush baby, which is far larger. And that hole is very small that they're squeezed into. I'm actually surprised they could fit in there. It's probably only about 2 inches in diameter. And Patricia, you've commented on that ginormous eye that keeps peering out at us from that hole. It's ginormous in relation to their head. It's almost about a third of the size of their head is taken up from their huge eye, which obviously aids them in hopping from branch to branch at night. Here we go. Oh, so close. See its little ears poking out there. Come on, you will make so many people around the world happy if we just get to see a little bit more of you. Franklin's went absolutely bananas there, almost to celebrate our better view of it. What's going on in there? Looks like it's trying to groom itself, certainly bobbing its head up and down. That you'll be able to see. Maybe it's just getting itself ready to come out and do a full reveal. Come on. Come out, come out. Not having much joy here, but I really do think it's going to be worth sticking around, because if it does decide to come out, we are going to get absolutely spoiled with some incredible views. Hello, Pelican Penny in Florida. You asking if the light doesn't hurt the bush baby's eyes. I don't think it hurts their eyes, but it will definitely cause it to squint a little bit and readjust. You can see the way it's looking at us. If it was hurting its eyes, it wouldn't be looking straight at us like that. And you'll also notice, Dave, if you zoom out a little bit, I've got the brightest portion of the light actually above where the hole is. So I'm just casting that kind of periphery light, which isn't as bright, on where the bush baby is. So you can kind of see that I am doing my best to try and just give enough light for us to see, but not put the brightest portion of light on the bush baby. Come on. Come on, little bush baby. I think it's wizened up to my little squeaking sounds. It's not seeming to pay as much attention to them. Well, I don't think it is going to come out while we are so close. And I'm feeling like our presence here is preventing it getting on with its business, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to say goodbye to this little bush baby. I'll definitely inform the others as to where this tree is, because this is going to be a place worth doing some stakeouts. If this is the only burrow that they live in for the time being, or cavity, we could hopefully come and spend some time here and maybe make them understand that we just want to view them, and they could become a little bit more relaxed with our presence. But for now, I think a lot of you will agree that we should push on and leave the little family of bush babies be. That was really, really awesome though, and glad that we've found one of their homes. Thanks, Dave. Well, that brings us towards the end of the safari, so thank you very, very much to everyone involved. Well done, Dave, on camera, who remained composed during one of the most hair-raising sightings I have ever been involved in with that big elephant bull on 2 occasions. The second one was obviously the most frightening of the 2. And very happy that you guys were there alongside us to experience it and share those memories, because that is not going to happen again anytime soon, I don't think. So awesome stuff, and well done to Kirsty and Nikki and the girls in the final control room. We will all be joining you on the sunrise safari, or you'll be joining us. Either way, we'll all be out in the morning, first thing, to see what's happening. So look forward to that adventure with you. We'll see you all then. Back to James.
Oh, it is a blustery night, everyone. The wind is coming out of the southeast at quite a rate now, and the impala are looking terrified. They're coming out onto the clearings here to see if they can see what is going to try and eat them during the course of the night. There was a leopard heading in this direction. Those are the tracks that Scott had, and I'm sure that's we saw you with him just down the other side of quarantine clearings. What I'm going to do is just head towards the Jeandre Dam pan. I don't know if it's actually the camera's working. Is it working, Kirsten? Up and down, so we can't see it at the moment, but I'm just going to go and check if he hasn't possibly come past for a drink. Now, a male leopard came past this area yesterday for a drink. Apparently it is working on our website, so that's good. But just in case there isn't a leopard heading towards the water for a little bit of a drink on a hot day like this, I just want to have a quick look. So this wind is lovely. I mean, there's a really nice temperature at the moment. Also, Jeandre. Another herd of impala down there, so obviously not many leopards around this area now, unless one of the impalas is about to be devoured. Just quickly have a look here. We've only got about 20 seconds left, so I will just quickly say thank you to all of you once again. Wonderful discussions that we had. Especially enjoyed those kids today. Wasn't it great to talk to them today? And a big thanks to Jeandre on the camera today. Well done, Jeandre. Scott, of course, with David. I'm glad they're okay. And a big thank you to Kirsten and Nikki in the final control. We will see you tomorrow at 05:30 when the dawn breaks. Stay happy where you are, and see you then.